All right, everybody, welcome to the inaugural episode of the Mega Movie Show brought to you by Backseat Directors. I am Andre and I am joined by my co host Ryan. What is going on, my man?
Hey man, it's good to be back, right? On a new channel, a visual channel now.
I know. We've graduated from just audio exclusive and podcasting to YouTubing. And so yeah, on episode 1, we just want to introduce ourselves. We want all of you viewers to kind of get to know us. We want you guys to get to know Backseat Directors and what we're all about and what you guys can expect moving forward. And so yeah, I just kind of want to give a history of Backseat Directors because we've actually been around for quite a few years. Ryan and I, we met all the way back in 2017. I think it was over Instagram. Wasn't that right?
Yeah, man. I think I remember seeing like a post that you put out, something, or did you follow me, or I followed you? And I remember reaching out to you because you had guests on your show, and like the top tip to get yourself famous was to be guests and on other people's shows or guest right. And I was like, oh, this guy, I got on this guy's show.
Yeah, man. I honestly don't remember how like it actually played out. I think it was over Instagram. Whether you or I messaged each other, something like that happened. But this was all the way back in 2017, and the rest is history. But just to get you guys kind of more familiar with Backseat Directors, I started Backseat Directors. I think I launched my first episode in March of 2017, and it all kind of began with my wife. She was the one that was pushing me to start something new, just kind of like a new creation to kind of, um, yeah, just explore new hobbies, so to speak. And at the time, I was kind of obsessed with Star Wars and what was happening in Star Wars, and I was consuming every bit of Star Wars content that I could find via podcast or YouTube's about the good and bad of what was going on with Star Wars at the time. And she's like, "Why don't you just do your own thing? You seem to be pretty passionate about that." And so I did. So I started my podcast March of 2017. To this date, we have over 115 episodes. We kind of took a little sabbatical. Ryan was on the podcast every now and then. I think for a while you were joining me about once a month, and we kind of had our own little segment that we did. But then through the pandemic starting in 2020, I think you and we were pushing like weekly episodes together for quite a while. And
Yeah.
but then 2021, yeah, that's when things kind of slowed down with Backseat Directors. But the last official episode that we did was, I think it was for the Snyder Cut. I think that was the last episode that we recorded and dropped. And we were joined by another one of our buddies. But yeah, man, that was the last one. It was the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, it was. That's mad. And I feel like there was a bit of a break before that. I think we kind of dusted it off a little bit for the Snyder Cup because it was so massive. But that was definitely the
Yeah.
last one, yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think the one right before that we did, it was Wonder Woman 1984, and I think we didn't want to miss the opportunity to share our true feelings about about how what we felt about yeah, Wonder Woman 1984. But here we are, dude. I'm excited to get this channel going. This is something that you and I have been talking about for quite a while, and to be honest, man, I would not be doing this if it wasn't for you kind of pushing me and just saying, let's do it, because we've been talking about it for so long. But finally, here we are.
Yeah, man. And thanks for doing it with me. We love talking movies and stuff, and I've always been quite complimentary on just kind of how good you are at this stuff. And I think that yeah, I think it's going to be good. I'm really glad that we're back with a different medium, which is exciting, refreshing, I think. So yeah, I'm really glad to be back.
Well, dude, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But I've told you this before. I've told you this before, but in many ways, you've helped me really solidify my own personal opinions on movies. And what I mean by that is that I think for a while I was pretty heavily influenced by brands and kind of the marketing ploys of big corporate studios and how they kind of really attract viewers. And I felt at the time I didn't realize how um maybe manipulated is a strong word, but I think that's actually the appropriate word. Genuinely manipulated by marketing and branding of, like, big movie franchises. And I think you help me see past, like, all those logos that really attract people, and kind of the brand loyalty that I found myself in. I think a lot of people find themselves in if they're honest with themselves, and see past that and really focus on quality. But dude, you really helped me do that, and it specifically challenging my opinions on quite a few movies.
Well, I
But
think
yeah,
you've
dude.
overtaken me now. I think anyone that follows you on Twitter would agree that you've certainly uh, you've certainly overtaken me with that overall kind of passion and that kind of um, like need for kind of quality. Like yeah, like a brand for me, it doesn't bother me. It's more, like always been about the quality and always about what you see on screen, no matter whether you like who's behind it or not. And yeah, and I think you have certainly overtaken me with that. You seem to have very strict strict quality rules of quality now.
Oh, so, and maybe this is a good time to kind of tell everyone that's watching that uh uh, I guess more or less what to expect from us in these videos, and how we talk about movies, because I want to be as open-minded and nuanced as I can when it comes to discussions about movies, and not just movies, but it's an approach that I try to take with life in general, and to be open-minded, and to um, look for the good where the good is there, but also be open to criticism, and and specifically criticizing things that you love. And so I guess kind of an example of this was really with Star Wars. I already mentioned this, but back in 2015, before the Force Awakens came out, I'm not sure I had been more excited for a movie ever in my life than with The Force Awakens. I mean, if you talk to anybody, you talk to my family, my wife, they would tell you how just obsessive I had become with what Disney was doing with Star Wars, and just how excited I was. And but then kinda after the movie came out, and then especially after The Last Jedi, and you see the logo Star Wars that's on screen, but everything about what you're seeing is so far detached of how you actually feel about Star Wars. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Like yeah, after the Last Jedi, it became hollow, and I think that's what you've just said about really revealing that things can just end up just being a brand and you can get really absorbed. And I think that Star Wars for you certainly, and I think for me definitely, but I think for you certainly because you were quite a defender of the Force Awakens. I think you really wanted
Yeah,
to like it
definitely.
because it had Star Wars attached to it, didn't you? You really wanted to like it, and I remember we got in some pretty heavy debates, but you were always open minded, and that's why we're such good buddies now because I always like to just be around people that are open minded, and you never like shut me down. You wanted to hear me out, but you couldn't quite understand it at the time. But we kept discussing it, and I think then once the Last Jedi came out, you then kind of really realized that hold on a minute, like this is a bit of a shambles. Like they don't care about this, and maybe put a new light on the Force Awakens after that, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, The Last Jedi was that was, if your eyes weren't open before, they were definitely open then, and mine my eyes were opened after The Last Jedi for sure. But yeah, no, I think so. What you mentioned, I think is critically important to how my views on movies have evolved. And you said that with The Force Awakens specifically, that I wanted to like it, and I think this is really important, because I think this is where a lot of people find themselves, and perhaps people more my age, people that were either born, in the 80s or early 90s, who kind of grew up with a lot of these beloved movie franchises, say Star Wars, or um, oh gosh, what's another one? I mean, let's just stick with Star Wars for now. But um, something that has become so personal and so dear to you, that that you want it so bad to be good, and that you're almost unable to see its faults, right? And so I think that's where I was when when Star Wars was happening back in 2015, and then yeah, The Last Jedi in 2017. But that you love what Star Wars was and what you hope it to be. You love it so much that you're willing to look past everything else that maybe perhaps in your core you feel is wrong. And that's where I found myself. But yeah, dude, through a lot of our discussions, and hopefully what you guys can expect through these videos is you guys can kind of see how we've evolved over the years, and how our opinions on movies have been shaped and formed, and how we want to approach discussing movies with all of you, because this is the approach that I want to take. I'm not, I want to make this very clear. I want to make this extremely clear for everybody watching. Backseat directors, and what Ryan and I are trying to do, and what at least what you guys can expect from us, is that we're not here making videos in hopes to gain access with Hollywood types. We're not here to please anybody and say the right things in hopes to get someone on our channel and do an interview, right? We're not trying to kiss up to anybody. We're not trying to brown nose anybody, just to get access and exposure and clout for this channel. That is not us. If you're looking for those kinds of channels, there are plenty of YouTube channels that you guys can find that have exactly that have people that are willing to say anything and to kiss up to anyone in order to get that access, and you know and
Now
and say
now
that.
more than ever. Now more than ever
Yeah.
as well.
Oh yeah.
Like it's
No.
it's
Yeah,
it's
go
mad.
ahead.
It's mad. The pandemic isn't COVID. It's people selling their souls like so badly. Like everyone that I watch is just I don't know what it is. I don't know. Yeah, say if it's trying to get access or whether it's a blend of that and people worrying too much that they're going to get cancelled, which I think is all in the same vein. That if you're going to get cancelled, then you're not going to make it big, I suppose. So it's really sad. So yeah, like there will be no filter on this. It will just be two mates who text each other pretty much all day about films, just putting this out there a bit more, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because Ryan and I, we don't have any, we're not employed by any media trade outlet. We're not writing for Vanity Fair or Variety or the Hollywood Reporter. Like we have no allegiances to anybody that have corporate interests in maintaining good relationships with Hollywood types like that. So what you can expect is unfiltered, honest, true opinions about what we think of movies and Hollywood today. Because yeah, as you guys will see in future videos, we have quite a few things to say and quite a few criticisms to level against Hollywood. But yeah, no, and Ryan, I mentioned that because it's really important to me, because that is something that I've noticed a lot over the last couple of years, is kind of a severe lack of integrity of people that whether they're doing podcasts or YouTube videos or whatever it may be, that they are they are willing to allow, they are willing to not be honest about what they truly think in order to maintain, those kind of close ties or relationships with Hollywood. They don't want to lose their access, and so because they don't want to lose their access, they're unwilling to say things that everyone else plainly sees, in terms of what they think is wrong with movies or Hollywood in general. And that is not what this channel is going to be. And so yeah, that's something I wanted to to make
No,
abundantly clear.
yeah, and I want to echo that, and that's why we're doing it. I want to go back actually to the point that you made earlier about kind of how you've changed and stuff. I think one of the big points, one of the big areas for me where I think that really cemented kind of how your change and outlook on movies, which I actually think is kind of why we're doing this a little bit as well. I think to try and maybe open up people's eyes a bit more to things and to try to strive more for quality than kind of just following the brand. But for me, I think the big part for you was that I was worried that you would undoubtedly like the Snyder Cut because you still are, but you were so behind like the movement. You wanted it to be so good, and like you're so behind Zack Snyder, so you wanted it to be like good for him. So there was a worry that like, because we have to admit, like Man of Steel now I think is maturing a lot better, and I always thought that film was good off the bat. But Batman versus Superman, I think we can all agree had its great parts, but also some parts which aren't so great. And so when it comes to the Justice League, like there was quite a high chance that it wasn't still going to be perfect. But I was worried that a lot of people would still see it as perfect just because of how meaningful it was, more than the actual quality of the film, which is obviously something I always just want to look out for. And then and you were very honest, and I remember getting a text message, and we saw eye to eye straight away that it was much better than the original version, and it was still a really good superhero film, but it wasn't without its faults. And I was wasn't relieved, because it wasn't like I was saying that you're like brainwashed or anything, but it was nice. I felt like it was a good moment to really highlight that you have kind of grown out of wanting to see films for the way that you want to see them, and more seeing them for what they are, no matter how invested you are behind them.
Yeah, so that was actually something that I had considered for myself, and anybody that knows me on Twitter, anybody that is engaged with me on Twitter, knows that yeah, I've been somewhat obsessive regarding Zack Snyder's films and kind of his standing with DC and Warner Brothers right now. But I digress. No, that's a great example, man, because it was something I think I remember even you bringing this up um, before the movie premiered, and just kind of saying, hey, like, make sure you go in with an open mind.
Yeah,
And I felt like I consciously made an effort to uh, to experience the movie that way on first viewing. And on first viewing, I it was almost surreal, man, because it's something that people had been talking about and campaigning for years, for years. And the fact that it was finally happening, it almost didn't feel real. And so when I was watching it, I don't even remember what my initial first reactions were, other than like, holy cow, this actually happened. But it wasn't until I think the second or third viewing where I really felt like my opinions had kind of settled regarding the movie. But and we'll talk a lot of DC and Zack Snyder and other things in upcoming videos as well. But no, that's a great point, man, because um, you see channels or Twitter accounts or social media accounts or whatever that are specifically dedicated to, say, like a Lord of the Rings YouTube channel, right? Someone that has created and invested a lot of time and effort and energy into creating this one thing that is representative of like kind of one intellectual property, like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or whatever it may be. And they build up a following, they build up a lot of viewers, because they have created this thing specifically geared toward people who have interest in Lord of the Rings, right? Or Star Wars. And say you're someone that had a Star Wars podcast or a Star Wars YouTube channel, and then all the sequel trilogy starts coming out, and you have all these viewers and subscribers that you're attempting to cater your videos toward. And what happens when you start making videos telling everybody how absolutely terrible the Star Wars movies are? It's like, I understand why some people, that's scary to some people, why some people are really hesitant to actually say what they think and how they feel about a certain movie, because of what they've created around that specific brand, you know. And in many ways, I think the Snyder Cut was kind of the same thing, with a lot of people that have kind of built up their own, following regarding the Snyder Cut. But yeah, man, no, that's good, dude. That's good. I'm happy you brought that up, because I think that was probably one of the most recent examples of something that yeah, this is definitely uh, related to. But right, I want our viewers to continue to get to know us a little bit more intimately, a little bit more personally about our kind of movie preferences. And so one of the things I wanted us to discuss are talking about some of the movies that shaped us. And now the way that I kind of viewed it was, um, when I was growing up. I had a lot of movies when I was a kid that I feel like even now are still influential on me, and at the time, obviously, were very influential, but also movies as we've grown up that have become as influential as those movies when we were younger. So, I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and start. All right. And so I'll give you one movie that was probably it was probably the movie I watched the most. It was probably the most influential movie on me as a kid. And even though I think into my adulthood, I haven't held on to kind of my attachments with this I guess, franchise. I guess you could call it a franchise, but either way, it was the 1990 Ninja Turtles live action movie. Dude, that movie uh, on repeat VHS, man, I probably watched that movie 100 times. That movie was incredibly influential on me, made a huge impact on me. And mom, if you're ever watching this, I still love you and I'm not calling you out, but that movie is one of the reasons why I got my mouth washed out with soap on multiple occasions. Just dropping some of the swear words that Raphael and some of the other turtles were saying. And but no, dude, Ninja Turtles, I was obsessed. I was absolutely obsessed with Ninja Turtles as a kid. And that movie specifically was, yeah, man, it just it really shaped a lot about how I kind of consumed movies and entertainment and things like that. But I don't think there was any movie more influential to me as a kid than that 1990 Ninja Turtles movie.
Nice. Yeah, that film for me, I was a bit younger. I'm just a bit younger than you. So for me, I haven't seen that film in ages. So, but I really recall enjoying it and watching it quite a lot myself. But I can only kind of like, there's just bits of it that like flash into my head, but I can't remember it from beginning to end. So I do need to go back to it. Like for whatever reason, there's a scene, isn't there, where they're in like a lab and there's like the fluid going through like the pipes
Yeah, you see,
and
you're already
stuff.
thinking.
Like
You're thinking of the sequel. You're
I'm
thinking,
thinking of the sequel.
yeah,
Maybe they're blending
that's
together.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Secret of the Ooze.
Is that that
I'm talking
one?
the original, man. The original with
I've
Shredder.
seen it. I've definitely seen him. I've definitely seen all of them, but I haven't watched them since like I was a kid. So like I should go back to them. That like it's weird. They've kind of disappeared because like films I usually
Yeah.
watch that I go back to are ones that like I like throw myself onto the sofa and like turn the TV on and I go to like the movie channels. And then like I'll find one of the films that are on there and usually they've got like a mixture of new and old ones there. But like that's not a film that's kind of ever really just on terrestrial telly, or I don't even think I've seen it on like demand on Netflix or anything like that. I don't know how you'd go about finding that film now.
So I actually think the original Ninja Turtle trilogy is on Netflix in the US right now. I don't know about the UK or anywhere else in the
Right.
world, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the original trilogy is on Netflix in the US. But back in 2020, during the height of the pandemic, Ninja Turtles they celebrated its 30th anniversary, and so they had a lot of YouTube kind of celebrations. The actress that plays April O'Neil, she did a big watch party, like a live streaming watch party of watching the
Nice.
original 1990 movie. Yeah, and there were some other things going on. A lot of the fans were disappointed that there wasn't kind of like a collector's edition re-released for Blu-ray and 4K UHD. I was definitely one of those persons that was a little disappointed. I own all the movies on Blu-ray, but I've heard so many things about deleted scenes and things like that the original director and some of the creators back then were hoping to get put back in, some additional footage that we've never seen. But yeah, so I mean that movie is going on 32 years old now. So
Wow.
it's a classic, man.
Nice.
I love that movie. Dude, if you haven't seen it, I mean, maybe Ninja Turtles was just a little bit before your time. Just a little
So
bit
I would
before your
have.
time.
So I remember my brother being a big fan of it. So I remember watching it. Like a lot of the films that I watched growing up as a kid were probably all before my time, to be honest, because I my brother or my mum
Sure.
wanted to watch them. So but I've definitely seen them all, 100%. Like I've got the flashbacks of everything. I like I said, but obviously clearly I don't know which film, which bit matches to which film. So I should go back and just rewatch them. Really, it'd be interesting because I know how much you love them. You refer to them quite
Yeah, dude,
often.
I honestly I could probably quote the original movie word for word. I've seen it so many times. Back in 2020 on the 30th anniversary, I had my wife watch it with me while we ordered Domino's pizza because it's Domino's
Nice.
that delivers the pizza to the
Yeah.
turtles down through the sewer, you know?
Nice. Nice.
Anyway, so that's definitely one of my movies. What about you, man? Let's hear some of the
So when
movies
you
that
asked me about that you were going to bring us up on the show, man, like this was like it's like torture for me. So I thought like I know like all of the films that were big to me as a kid, and I know like I know loads of them. So I was just I'll just kind of like wing it when I get on there and just see which ones I kind of pop into my head as kind of the more prominent ones out of everything. So I think what I'm gonna have to say is probably one of the ones that I really remember being really massive for me was the first Spider-Man film, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man film, the first one. Even though I believe the second one to be better, I think most people do. I think it's one of the greatest super films. The first one for me was just next level. I always grew up with the loving the cartoons, big Spider-Man fan, toys, costumes, everything, all of that jazz. And then for like to see them bring that film and bring something onto the big screen and it be quite serious. They obviously did X-Men quite soon before that, but I wasn't as much into X-Men as I was Spider-Man, and just it was just perfect on all levels in terms of in terms of its accuracy in most aspects, the quality of what it was, how its entertainment, the score that came with like the by Danny Elfman and stuff. It was just, yeah. I remember not being able to wait to watch that film again, but obviously because I was so young, like I could only really go with my parents to go see it again. So right now, obviously, if I like a film, I just go several times. But I just remember like chomping at the bit, waiting to get the DVD. I think I got it for like Christmas, the DVD, and was just like, and then I just watched it over and over again. Like I just couldn't wait for it to, yeah. So that was a big deal for me.
Yeah, I think it came out in 2002, that first Spider-Man movie. I think it was summer of 2002.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was maybe 2001. But no, X-Men. I think X-Men was 2001. Yeah, and Spider-Man was 2002.
Yeah, X-Men was either 2000 or 2001, and then Spider-Man, yeah, 2002. Back when Marvel did not own any of the rights to to those characters. Well, I mean, I guess other than what they ended up with Iron Man and Captain America
Yeah,
and stuff like that. But yeah, dude, I remember seeing those movies in theaters. I remember going with my friends. I was in high school when those movies came out, but yeah, I remember thinking, wow, this is what superhero movies are. Like this is what we can expect from superhero movies. I remember being blown away. I mean, because
yeah,
everything before then, and not including the X-Men movie, I don't remember seeing the original X-Men in theaters. But everything that had come out before then, obviously you had the I guess three Batman movies in the 90s, that became more campy one after the next. The original Batman came out in 1989, but yeah, man, Sam Raimi, I think he elevated the standards for what superhero movies could be,
yeah,
and he did it in a big way. Yeah, yeah. I don't think people talk nearly enough about those Spider-Man movies. I mean, now people are going back and watching them just because of No Way Home, and saying, "Oh yeah, I always loved Tobey Maguire." Yeah, yeah, sure you did.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that's a good one. But I think we obviously we can't talk about the movies that shaped us without discussing Star Wars. But I'll tell you my kind of experience with Star Wars growing up. So I remember watching it when I was a kid, maybe 5 or 6 years old, and not really liking it. I didn't find any interest in it. It's not my parents. My parents, they liked the movies, but my parents weren't big fans of the movies or anything like that. They weren't obsessed with Star Wars, and so you know when I um, when I rediscovered Star Wars was when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. When we we had a neighbor babysitting us, and he put on The Empire Strikes Back, and I remember him quoting it like word for word. And this was the first time I remember watching The Empire Strikes Back, and I remember finding out that Darth Vader was Luke's dad, but having no context for what that meant, just because I was just so unfamiliar with Star Wars. But it was around the time I was 11 or 12. I remember my parents buying kind of the it was like it wasn't the special edition because the special editions hadn't come out yet, but it was kind of the an updated kind of remastered version of the VHS trilogy. And I remember watching Return of the Jedi. Yeah, I had to have been probably like 11, I think. And just thinking, this is the greatest movie I have ever seen. I have ever seen. And just thinking like there is no movie that I could watch that is as cool as this. And I think I probably watched Return of the Jedi probably 30 times before I ever turned on like The Empire Strikes Back or the original. I just remember it was the Return of the Jedi that really kind of captured my heart and my love of Star Wars when I was a kid. Now into my adulthood, though, I would say that The Empire Strikes Back is my personal favorite. But as a kid, it was Return of the Jedi. Yeah, by far.
Yeah, I agree. Return of the Jedi for me is my favorite, but I think that's because of the emotional ties. I can definitely agree that The Empire Strikes Back, I think, probably has more. It's the better film because of like the twists, and it's a bit darker, which I think is people will enjoy and stuff like that. And um, but I think for me, yeah, I have those emotional ties with Return of the Jedi as well, just because of I think the kind of the arc that Luke goes through in Return of the Jedi a bit more. I think that it's quite a much more of an emotional, compelling story for Luke, and doing like the right thing, and there's a lot of moral. There's a lot of kind of moral compass kind of setting storyline, I think, in Return of the Jedi, which really resonates with me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. All right, to give me another one. What's another one
Cool.
for
So
you?
I knew you were going to bring up Star Wars. So for anyone, like, Star Wars would obviously be up there, like for me as well. But obviously we want to try and keep it a bit different. So this one, I don't think you're going to see this one coming, and it's not. I could probably pick out like a single film, but I don't like to. But the Rocky films.
Really?
Yeah, so for me, like, growing up, like, I love movies because of my mum. Like, my mum got me into films. She loves films. She watched probably a film every day, like
Huh.
all different films, and she loved the Rocky films. And for me, like, I've watched those films so many times with her, without her, and just they're just I just think I love heroic films. Like, I love superhero films and stuff, and I think that it's like the most heroic story for such an unheroic guy, and like I love it. Like, I think it's just it ticks all of the boxes for me, and especially a lot of people don't really like Rocky 2, but for me, like, that stands out like the most when he finally beats Apollo Creed, and he's doing his speech, and he's like saying like to Adrian that he's done it, and the music plays, and it's like one of the first real films for me that, like, where the score like really stood out, where it was like I really enjoy like film scores, and it was like this, like, it was the Rocky films, and it wasn't just like the main tune for Rocky, it was all of the music throughout Rocky, the Rocky franchise. So yeah, really, really, really big deal to me. So yeah, it's
Dun,
such
dun,
a
dun, 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 dun,
yeah.
dun, 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 dun. It's iconic, man. It's iconic for me. Rocky. I don't think really began to appreciate those movies until I was a teen. I remember that they would show up on TV, and it'd be like a marathon of Rocky movies, like on TNT or TBS or something like that. Usually like holiday weekends, and I remember that's when I really started going, wow, these movies are actually really good. These are really good.
They
Yeah.
are absolutely brilliant. So yeah, they hold a soft spot for me, just for many different reasons. So yeah, I think from a shaping his perspective, I think, like, yeah, the character of Rocky, just, you know what I mean, like, constantly fighting above and beyond against all odds, sort of thing, is a real story that resonates with me, and I think it's really a part of like my character, whether or not that's the why. But I would like to think that it is, because it is a film that I watched several times and knew back and front, and I believe it's probably because of that reason.
Dude, that is one of the beauty just the beautiful things about movies. I mean, I cannot say that I am who I am today, like, without movies. Like, movies without a doubt have been that influential on me. Just kinda how what you were saying about Rocky, and you. Like, that's what real powerful movies can be for its audience. Like, movies that are are dedicated to telling a story, a truthful story about human struggle, about human experience, about, um, about sacrifice and dedication and loyalty and love and friendship. Like those movies have such a profound ability to really reach into your soul. Like unfortunately, Hollywood seems to not know how to make those movies, those kinds of movies today. But I digress. Anyway, I'll just mention a few others that were really influential on me as a kid. So there were two movies that I don't know what my parents were thinking, but allowed me to watch when I was a kid and scared the hell out of me. One would be Poltergeist. I remember watching that probably when I was like 6 years old. Yeah, that was like nightmare inducing. I think it originally came out in 1982. But dude, that movie's fantastic. I finally convinced my wife to watch it with me this past Halloween. She had refused to watch it all through all these years, and I was like, "Come on, just watch it with me." I'm like, "It's not that scary," but it is so 80s, dude. It just captures the heart of the 80s in such a beautiful way, man. It's like just in a way that like movies like E.T. or The Goonies capture. But speaking of Goonies, Goonies is definitely one of the most influential movies on me as a kid. But Aliens, James Cameron, Aliens. I don't know. Again, I don't know what my parents were thinking, but mom and dad, I still love you. But yeah, dude, that movie more than any other movie, it gave me nightmares to the point to where I'm sleeping on my parents' floor as a kid, dude. But even as much as those movies scared me, I would still watch them and like, dude, James Cameron, Aliens, that is a classic. That is a classic. I'd say as an adult though that Ridley Scott's Alien, the first one, is my personal favorite now. But dude, those two movies are fantastic. Um, you ever
Nice.
seen The Secret of Nim, the animated film, the
No, but I'm
Don
pretty. I
Bluth
feel like you might.
animated film?
I feel like you might have mentioned this to me before.
See, and I wonder what it would be like for someone now who didn't grow up on this movie, but The Secret of Nim, that was probably one of the most influential animated movies I remember as a kid. That and Land Before Time, both Don Bluth
Oh,
films,
Land Before
non-Disney.
Time. I've seen. I
Yeah.
love that film.
Yeah. So yeah, Land Before Time, Secret of Nim, those were really impactful animated movies. But yeah, those are just a few others that I wanted to mention. But you got any others you wanted to mention
Yeah.
about?
So, if we're going down the route of our parents probably shouldn't have let us watch it at the age that they probably did. For me, to the Terminator 2.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that film as well. To be honest, to this day, like that's not even a film in the sense like I love that film today. It's like I'd say it's probably my top five favorite films. But for
Mm.
me, that film was like, yeah, that's like the real proper first action film that really like sticks in my brain of just pure like proper action, like very adult themes, kind of a bit scary. Like a T1000 is like terrifying, and I think like yeah, my feel kind of real glimpse of just like proper like proper Arnold Schwarzenegger film as well. And so I would that was a real big one for me. And you probably don't have this on your list because maybe you were I don't know you were a bit older, so I'm not sure if this falls into being out of your childhood. But obviously for me, I've got Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
like obviously that I feel like they're just too obvious to mention, but I feel like I need to mention them. Like obviously the Fellowship of the Ring came out when I was 10. So that was massive,
Yeah.
and absolutely love that film. And obviously, I believe I'm the same age as Daniel Radcliffe. So
Oh,
like,
really?
yeah.
Crazy.
So
Crazy,
like
dude.
the Harry Potter films are massive for me. Like in terms of really growing up and being like the same age as like the actor growing up, and then also kind of going through those years because like they release one like every year. Like they did
Yeah.
a really good job at staying on top of being able to get those, like churn those out. That's an experience I don't think that many people can really kind of go through to really kind of follow such a brilliant film, like every film is absolutely brilliant. The story's brilliant, but not only that, like you've got a coming of age story, and you're like the same age as that person, and you're getting that every year. And as you see that person grow up, you follow those same footsteps, like when they go and do their kind of like prom related dance stuff and the awkwardness with girls, and you know what I mean, like all of that, and then like what do you do with your life after you finish school and stuff like that. It's all like like the same similar time for me. So it's so yeah, Harry Potter, like unbelievable films.
Well, and I imagine you being from the UK, it also has kind of a very unique
Yeah,
impact in terms of like your perspective on it as well. I mean, Harry Potter was a world renowned phenomenon. It wasn't just popular in the UK. Like I don't mean it that way, but yeah, no, I think yeah, having a story specifically from where you're from, written by an author from where you're from, and a story that's based in the UK, I think that's pretty cool. But um, I would say Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings came out when I was in high school. So I was, I'm a few years older than you, and so um, I I would kind of more consider the Lord of the Rings kind of more of influential into my adulthood instead of my childhood. But I mean, in the same way that I see, I would say that The Empire Strikes Back is like influential into my adulthood, because it was when I was older that I really learned to appreciate that movie and understand that movie in a way that I never understood it before, right? And but yeah, the Two Towers has always been my personal favorite of the trilogy. I think I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy is the best trilogy ever made. As big of a Star Wars fan as I consider myself, as much as I love those movies, I don't think there is any trilogy that is more perfect than Lord of the Rings. It is on a level of quality I think that has never been matched before, and the way things are going in Hollywood, I'm not sure any movie will ever touch those movies, just in terms of the level of dedication, the heart and the love that is put into that, the fealty to staying true to Tolkien and what Tolkien wrote as well. Yeah, it just dude, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is just
it,
it's a step above, man. Everything.
do you feel do you feel privileged? Actually, this is an interesting question. I'm really interested in what you get because it's off the back of this question. Do you feel privileged that, in the sense of that, some generations grew up with the Godfather trilogy, some generations grew up with the Star Wars trilogy, and I mean, like they came out and like they saw it and seen it at the cinema. Do you know what I mean, they experienced that culture change when those films were released. Do you feel like honored that you were like that is part of kind of your generation, that is yours? Like you, when you have kids, for example, you can say to them like, I never had Star Wars, I never had like Godfather, but I had Lord of the Rings.
Dude, I think that's a great point because, yeah, I mean, I w- I wasn't even born by the time Return of the Jedi came out, so the Star Wars trilogy had already finished and concluded in theaters before I was even alive. And I would say, yeah, I would say the Lord of the Rings is my generation's like big kind of movie events. I mean, other people, younger people, Gen, what is it? What generation are we in now? Is it Gen Z?
Oh,
Something like that?
I have no idea.
The Marvel generation, like, like people that are kind of in their 20s now that grew up with Marvel, that were maybe like 12 or 13 when they saw Iron Man. I was well into my 20s when Iron Man came out, but yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a really good way to describe it, because that's what Lord of the Rings was for me. I mean, dude, I have when the Two Towers came out, this was back when uh the theater that I went to in my hometown, you didn't have assigned seats, so if you wanted to get a good seat, you'd have to show up early. And for a big movie event like the Two Towers, you'd have to go wait in line. And for whatever reason, I don't know why Warner Brothers released it the way that they did. But I remember going to see it opening day on a Wednesday at like 12:30 PM. I mean, it was in the middle of the day on a Wednesday. It was so bizarre, but I this was the first showing, and so I skipped school with my friends. Like, we we figured out a way to not have to be there. And then I took my little brother, I picked him up from elementary school, wrote like a forged parent's note to get him out of class. I mean, he couldn't have been more than, he was probably your age, I think. I think you and my brother are closer in age. But I picked him up, I took him out of class. I got in trouble for it too. I freaking brought him to the theater with me with all of my high school friends. There were tons of people there dressed up. Like it was packed. It was one of the best theater experiences that I've ever had. And I ended up seeing that movie, I think 6 times in theaters. I mean, it was just, it was the greatest thing that I think I had ever seen. It was just so good, so good. But in 2020, during the pandemic, when all the movies are being delayed, my local theater here, they they brought back the original Lord of the Rings. Well, not the original. They started screening the extended versions in theaters, and so obviously, when the movies came out, they weren't showing the extended versions. It was just the theatrical versions. And so I was like, okay, I cannot miss this opportunity to see the extended versions in theaters, something I never, had the opportunity to do before. And I brought my nephews who obviously weren't alive when those movies came out. Um, and I was like, I'm gonna give them an experience that I think and hope that they will remember for the rest of their lives. And yeah, dude, we watched all three in theaters, extended versions, and it was incredible, man. Just incredible. It's freaking
Yeah,
phenomenal.
I did the same. I did the same. I was actually on furlough, which for any people in America that won't know, it's kind of just like the government pay 80% of your salary so that you could like self-isolate essentially. But cinema was kind of opened, and yeah, and they did the same. And I remember watching like each one like essentially like back to back on the days. So like I saw one on Tuesday, then the next one on Wednesday, the next one on Thursday, and I was the only one in the cinema for each showing. And I just remember like I spent so much money, like I got like all of the snacks possible and just like sat just like to chill. My girlfriend was like at work. I remember it was like so hot as well. I just remember it was like one of the hottest days of the year. So the cinema was like nice and cool and stuff. And it was just, and then once I got to like Return of the King, I just remember like at the end when like Aragon's like, you bow to nobody. Like I was crying like someone
Yeah,
pushed me
man.
in the face. And I've
Yeah.
seen these films a million times at
Yeah.
home. But like the cinema experience, and especially now how improved the cinema experience has gotten, the cinema I go to is like really high end. Like I really love going there. It was like I was uncontrollably weeping. It was unreal. And like really, I remember coming out and texting you, just going like, these films are they're profound. Like I like The Dark Knight is my favorite film ever. So don't get me wrong, but in terms of like, I think it's probably because I don't even put Lord of the Rings in the mixture of even being like a film in that sense. And how silly that sounds, but it's like they're just this incredible thing that's been created that
Yeah.
just stands alone. Like there's no
Yep.
conversation around it. So like it's incredible. And so that leads me on to that question I wanted to ask you, which actually you just dabbled in, which is really interesting, is do you think that people could argue that the Gen Z or whatever it is that have grown up with Marvel, would you say that it's on the same level as Lord of the Rings? For me, it's not, but is it because I grew up? Because obviously Marvel has done some pretty amazing things and has would say it's changed the face of cinema, whether for bad or for good. It's
Mhm.
been pretty impactful, and obviously that's pretty huge for some people like growing up with that.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
So probably Endgame was like that was probably the biggest movie event I would say since Return of the King. As big and popular as the Dark Knight trilogy is, I'm not sure. I'm not sure when the Dark Knight Rises came out if it was comparable of a movie event as Endgame. What would you say? What would you say
It's
about
hard.
that?
I'm quite biased. I remember we went to London and saw it in the BFI, like British Film Institute IMAX screen, which
Yeah.
is like one of the biggest screens in Europe. And we like had to wait, and like I remember Simon was booking them, and like the site was crashing and stuff. So we had quite a full-on intense experience with what we were doing. We got there, like it was like the whole place was absolutely rammed. People were dressed up, like they introduced the film, like someone got up on like a stage and introduced the film. So for me, my whole experience of The Dark Knight Rises was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I probably wouldn't. It's hard. I really can't remember it, but I probably wouldn't say no. Like I wouldn't say it was on the same level as Endgame. And I think Return of the King for me, I was still quite young, so for me, I think that experience was a bit different in terms of knowing how massive that actually was. I knew it was massive, but how massive it actually was, I think, was a little bit over my head. But I don't think it was Endgame. Endgame was just like you've been building something up for like 20 years, whatever it was. Like
Right. Right.
it was massive.
Yeah, and so you know, and I'm not trying to discredit anyone's experience with those movies, you know, because I know what Marvel means to a lot of people, you know, and this is just through my lens, my perspective of what I've experienced with movies, and I've seen every single Marvel movie in theaters. I've experienced, you know, I saw. I think I saw Infinity War 3 times. I think I saw Endgame 3 times in theaters, and like every time, I mean, the crowds were just going wild, just absolutely wild. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, I think a lot of people clap in movies these days, unwarranted, but uh, not, this isn't, again, I'm not trying to discredit anybody's, you know, love of Marvel, but yeah, I mean, Endgame is definitely, that has been the movie event of the decade for sure, like without a doubt. Um, but you can't compare you can't compare the quality of Marvel to Lord of the Rings. It doesn't compare. It just doesn't compare. It doesn't compare in in production level. And I'm not saying how much they spend on the movie. I think Black Widow costs almost 3 times what it costs to make the Fellowship of the Ring, you know. But if anyone has ever seen the behind the scenes features in the making of Lord of the Rings, the intricacy and the just dedication to most minute detail in making that world come to life is just unmatched. It is unmatched. And I mean, back then, yeah, I mean, there was computer technology to create CGI and things like that. There was plenty of CGI used in Lord of the Rings, but you know, to see I mean, Marvel digitally creates the suits of their heroes. Not even the suits are real, you know? And the further the Marvel universe gets into their movie making, the less practical effects that they use, you know?
Mm.
Like, so anyway, you and I talked about this the other day. The only way that I can genuinely describe, I think, in an accurate way, what the Lord of the Rings was in terms of a movie experience, it was nothing short of a religious experience. And I say that, you know me, man. I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. I love Jordan Peterson, and so he talks about what it means to have a religious experience and how music can create a religious experience for people, and that movies have the same effect. That when a movie is able to tap into something that is it speaks truth to you and your soul in a way that reality is unable to. So that fiction in a way is more powerful than reality because it depicts something that you know is real and right within, but isn't necessarily something you experience in the real world. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
that's what Lord of the Rings was, man. It created an experience that it can only be described as like a freaking spiritual experience, man. Those movies are incredible. They're incredible. I mean, I just don't know how else to describe them.
No, I agree. And yeah, I think we could go on forever, but they are just, I think we see eye to eye, and I think many people would agree. Just yeah, amazing.
Well, viewers, we hope you guys have enjoyed this first episode of the Backseat Directors Mega Movie Show. Ryan and I, we're still trying to figure out the frequency, come to agreement on how often we want to do these shows. I think for now, we're going to probably do this once every 2 weeks, but we're going to chop them up into a little bit more digestible clips if you guys like shorter videos. But we really appreciate you guys joining us here on this first episode. Um, and yeah, we're excited. We're just excited. We're excited to get things going and just add a new voice or voices to YouTube and to yeah, to just kind of movie discussion. So yeah, Ryan, you want to say anything else before we leave?
No, other than just I'm really excited to be back, excited to be chatting movies with you. I know that we do it a lot over text, but you just get a better rapport with talking in this in person as much as you can, obviously via a screen still. But no, really, really, really excited to be back. I'm looking forward to doing more of these videos. I'm looking forward to getting more involved with the fans again. Obviously, I had my experience with my Life of Films. If anyone remembers my Life of Films Twitter account and my website was taken down by Twitter because I apparently broke some rules, which was a shame, even though I didn't. Was a little bit hostile. So I'm really excited to kind of just pick it back up again under the movie mega show brand and just and get back on the saddle.
Yeah, well, good, man. No, it did when Twitter took down your account. It was kind of going through this time in which Warner Brothers seemed hell bent on claiming copyrights on any account that really was criticizing them, and so, yeah, we'll see what Warner Brothers does to our videos anytime, we talk about them on this channel, but no, man, the Backseat Directors has evolved over the years. It was primarily just a podcast. Then I launched a website back in 2020. I had a team of writers. The pandemic just kind of became a strain on my life and on everyone else's life. And we probably have, gosh, we probably have close to 200 written reviews on the website already. There's a ton of content on the website. So yeah, I mean, if you guys are interested right now, I wouldn't say it's necessarily up to date, but you can find Backseat Directors there. This video, I've already created all the links to the website, so you can find it all there too. But if you guys really want to engage with Ryan and I, kind of just more one-on-one, find us on Twitter. You can see our handles here in the videos. We are on Twitter quite a bit. That's where we do a lot of our discussions. That's where do a lot of quick movie takes and things like that. But yeah, find us on Twitter. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We hope you guys are looking forward to more videos. We know we're very excited to make more videos for you guys. But yeah, this is it's been fun. It's been fun. So until next time, the movies. I always say movies are our lifeblood, and the theater is our sanctuary. And we hope to see you guys there. All right. Until next time. The Backseat Director's theme song is Let's Go to the Movies by Ozomatli. Thanks for watching this episode of the Mega Movie Show. If you enjoyed today's discussion, go ahead and click that like button. If you have any comments or questions, let us know in the comment section below, or you can reach out to us on social media. Backseat Directors is on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay up to date with the show by hitting that subscribe button.